Hello and welcome back to the Double Clutch podcast. I'm one of your usual hosts, Mike Miller, and I'm joined for the first time in a very, 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 very long time by Mr.
Yep,
Tom Hall. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm a bit sad today, only because it's I'm going back to work tomorrow after such a long time off. So not only have I been reflecting on how long I've been off and not actually done anything on my house or all these things that I'd had planned over lockdown, but it's also the end of being able to stay up late and watch all these NBA games without work in the morning. So I'm a bit upset about that, but I'm sure we'll get back into the swing of things. How are you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, and it's poor timing as well because the early games are now stopping as well. So it's like you're now between a rock and a hard place. No, I'm not too bad. Yeah, it's been an interesting week in the world of sports, particularly the NBA. It's been a sad week. Just before we start, if you're not already, please go follow us at Double Clutch UK on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. If you would like to join our Discord community, it's discord.me/doubleclutch. And if you're not watching live on Twitch right now, join us, twitch.tv/doubleclutchuk. It's, like I said, it's been a difficult week in sports. We recorded last Monday, which was Mamba Monday, the 24th of August. So that was a sad reminiscing time about Kobe. 2 days later, the NBA halted due to the shooting in America of 7 times in the back for Jacob Blake. It was a difficult week, and then we've had 3 deaths in the NBA family over the past few days as well. It's been a tough one. So we're going to start with the stoppage because that was the biggest thing in NBA news last week. Essentially, if you haven't already heard, which I imagine everyone has because you're a basketball fan if you're tuning into this. Yeah, exactly. So the playoffs halted for 3 days. Milwaukee led a walkout in protest of racial injustice after Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back. This is likely leaving him paralyzed for the rest of his life. And he was shot by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Following that, there were protests in Kenosha where a 17-year-old white male shot 3 people, killing 2 of them, and has now been charged with murder. So the team the Bucks walked out in protest of this, and they were the first of what eventually was all 13 teams essentially saying, we're done until something's sorted. There was talk of the season just ending there and then. Jaylen Brown made some fantastic comments to the rest of the players, basically saying, well, if you go out, if you leave the bubble, what are you going to do? What are you going to do differently? Because if you're going to stay at home, sit on your couch, you might as well stay and play. It took people like Barack Obama and LeBron to sort of discuss and encourage or guide LeBron James and a group of players. It also took Michael Jordan to get involved in negotiations. And it looked as though the league might not restart. But 3 days later it did. There was a joint statement released by the NBPA Executive Director, Michelle Roberts, and Commissioner Adam Silver. I'll read it quickly. But essentially, we had a candid and impassioned and productive conversation yesterday between NBA players, coaches, and team governors regarding the next steps to further our collective efforts and actions in support of social justice and racial equality. Among others, the attendees included player and team representatives of all 13 teams in Orlando. All parties agreed to resume the NBA playoff games on Saturday, August the 29th, with the understanding that the league, together with the players, will work to enact the following commitments. So commitment 1 is the NBA and its players have agreed to immediately establish a social justice coalition with representatives from players, coaches, and governors that will be focused on a broad range of issues, including increasing access to voting, promoting civic engagement, and advocating for meaningful police and criminal justice reform. 2, in every city where the league franchise owns and controls the arena property, team governors will work to continue with local election officials to convert the facility into a voting location for the 2020 general election to allow for a safe in-person voting option for communities vulnerable to COVID. If a deadline is passed, team governors will work with local election officials to find another election-related use for the facility, including but not limited to voter registration and ballot receiving boards. 3, the league will work with players and our network partners to create and include advertising spots in each NBA playoff game dedicated to promoting greater civic engagement in national and local elections and raising awareness around voter access and opportunity. These commitments follow months of close collaboration around designing a safe and healthy environment to restart the NBA season, providing a platform to promote social justice as well as creating an NBA foundation focused on economic empowerment in the Black community. We look forward to the resumption of the playoffs and continuing to work together in Orlando in an all-team NBA team market to push meaningful and sustainable change. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Well done. Had you practiced that beforehand? Because that was seamless.
Yeah, that was. I completely recited that. This is a huge thing. 2020 has sucked as a year in general, but the racial injustice has really come to the forefront since lockdown. Essentially, we've had protests galore over unlawful killings and essentially oppression of black people and abuse of black people. And the NBA is a predominantly black league. I don't think there's anyone who, certainly not in my circle of friends, certain people I know who objects to the way that they dealt with this situation. What's your take on the whole circumstances? Do you foresee anything happening where we may not see the completion of this season?
I think we'll definitely see the end. I was really proud the other night when it happened to be a fan of the NBA, just because, I think there was two main questions that people had. One being when it actually happened. So the Bucks just turned up as if they were going to play, even their coaches thought they were going to play. And then the players just didn't walk out. So it took the coaches and the Magic and all the rest of the league by surprise. So why didn't they plan it? Why didn't they tell everyone else beforehand? But I actually think the way that they did it had so much more of an impact because it was such a shock to everybody. My phone was blowing up and I only set notifications for Woj and Shams. It just sent Twitter into an absolute frenzy and the news was getting out everywhere, which it probably wouldn't have had the same impact if they'd planned it and told everyone in advance. And I think the second thing was the question that people have asked me is, what will it? So fair enough, they've boycotted the game, but what will it actually achieve by them doing this? And what I've been most proud of is the players all meeting together and saying, I think it was the whole thing of LeBron wasn't very happy that they just called the game off, but they didn't have a clear plan of where they were going to go, and they've actually put so much into action, which has just been amazing with opening the arenas up to voting. And it's just been a really tangible response rather than just raising awareness for it, which would have been great as well. But the fact they've put these things into place is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It's great to follow a league where the players have enough power to stand up and try to make a change without being reprimanded for it. And it certainly hasn't always been the way. Obviously, players in the 90s were essentially blackballed from the league. Craig Hodges springs to mind. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf springs to mind. This isn't the first time that there has been a threatened walkout ahead of the first national televised All-Star game, which I want to say was in the 60s. The All-Stars like Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, they all said, we're not going to go play unless you recognise the players' union, essentially. And it's steps like that which have given the players' union the powers it has today to basically empower players to stand up for the things they believe in. This certainly in this day and age where everyone has a platform to speak out on their beliefs, empowering them to stand up for what they believe in and be more than an athlete is absolutely incredible. I don't know any other league which allows players to do that without being reprimanded. And hats off to the NBA or the NBA Players Association, because it shouldn't come to them to make these changes as athletes. But if no one's making them and you want them to be made and you have the power to enact something, you should be doing it. So full credit to them. It's pretty incredible what they're doing. I do see a situation where if things don't change, then we get this again. But ultimately, this is bigger than basketball. This is about equality, and that should this is.
My initial response was selfishly I'd be gutted if the season didn't finish. And then when you actually take a step back and think about it, it's so much bigger than just putting a ball into the net. It's a massive issue that even surpasses just the USA. It's a massive thing, and so them setting the example, and then for the rest of all the American sports that night then cancelled all the games as well, and it just became this huge thing. I had people messaging me that weren't even know nothing about basketball, but just saying why they're doing this, how amazing is it that the NBA is leading the way and all that kind of thing. So I was really proud in that moment to be a fan of the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you the global reach and power of the league, and it's great that they're bringing something like this to the forefront of our minds because it feels like after that initial uh, surge around Breonna and George Floyd's death,
Yeah.
that things have waned slightly. We're going to change track slightly, but it's still pretty sad. Lute Olson died on August the 27th, former head coach of the University of Arizona. Was 85, suffered from a stroke. He was head coach of Arizona for 25 years and inducted into both the Basketball Hall of Fame and Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame. He began his coaching career in 1969, retiring in 2008. That scares the heck out of me that someone can do a job for that long. During his career, he coached Steve Kerr, Mike Bibby, Damon Stoudemire, Jason Terry, Sean Elliott, Gilbert Arenas, Judd Bushler. Shout out to everyone who watched The Last Dance and now know who he is. Richard Jefferson, Luke Walton, Andre Iguodala, Bison Dele, Sean Rooks, and Channing Frye, and won a national championship in 96, 97.
I didn't know much about this guy. I had to do some research. But in doing that, I found that they'd only been in the NCAA tournament 3 times before he took over. And then his overall record for Arizona was 781 wins, 279 losses. So the way that he flipped that franchise is just unreal.
Absolutely mad. What a career that was. And then one of my favourite players, Clifford Robinson, died of lymphoma on August the 29th. I say it laughing because it's just I don't know what else to say. It's horrible. But like one day, next day, it's just horrible. Known as Uncle Cliffy, 18 seasons in the NBA for 5 franchises. Won a 6th Man of the Year. Was an All-Star. Made 2 All-Defensive teams. Was a beloved trailblazer in Phoenix Suns. Wore the headband. Essentially, was a prototypical 3-and-D player about 20 years before his time. He was an incredible player. He in 2014. Have you seen Dennis Rodman's documentary Big Bang in Pyongyang?
No, I need to get around to it.
It's basically
sounds good.
so it was the diplomatic the trip to North Korea where they played basketball for Kim Jong-un's birthday.
Right.
Cliff Robinson was one of the team, one of the Americans that went. So he's done things like that. During his post-basketball life, this is it makes me laugh, this story. He became a cannabis entrepreneur, which so there were times when he was referred to as Uncle Spliffy instead of Uncle Cliffy. But he basically said the only way he managed to get through his 18-year career in terms of recovery and battling things like anxiety was through his consumption of marijuana, which he preferred to the potential side effects of pharmaceutical drugs, essentially. So yeah, unfortunately, he passed, and the Blazers paid tribute with the headbands. And then today, John Thompson, who is a legendary figure from Georgetown, the first African American to win an NCAA title, he died. He was a 2-time champ with the Boston Celtics, your Boston Celtics. He coached at Georgetown for 27 years. He once confronted. So I was doing more research on it today, and I love this. So he's coached guys like Iverson, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, but he once confronted a notorious Washington, D.C. drug dealer who'd been basically making friends with his players. And so this story goes basically that he wasn't happy about this, and he invited him in. It was all cordial. And this is a really dangerous drug dealer associated with several, horrific events. And he literally they were talking back and forth, and the guy was like, well, I don't think maybe there's much of an issue. Apparently, like, John Thompson, and he was like 6'8" or something. He's a big guy if you look at the photo. Like, just put his finger in the middle of the guy's eyes and then just started shouting at him. And I was just like, and then there was no further issues at all. So massive respect to him. He was a 7-time coach of the year. But that's another legend of the game that has been lost in the past few days. And it just, 2020 sucks. Rest in peace to those 3 who passed. Well, let's end on a positive note. Damien Lillard announced today that he's expecting twins. I don't know if you saw the photo. It's a great little photo. His hands, his partner's hands, his son's hands, and they're holding a little pod with 2 peas in it. I thought it was a beautiful little touch. But did you have anything you wanted to say on any of those guys?
Just it ties in nicely with what we're on about before, I think, because with John Thompson as well, I think he was responsible for the league not being dominated by white guys and bringing in the mix of races that we now have and the diversity, and he was a big part of that, especially for that Georgetown team. So that's a nice bit of something to add to his legacy, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, huge legacies for all three of those guys. Let's jump into some basketball now. Hopefully the mood will lighten. Everything's not dark as it has been the last week. Round one is almost done. Denver versus Utah. They're 3-3 tied. A must-win game for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray drops his second 50-point game of the series. Went 9 for 12 from three. His dribbling and layup package needs to be upgraded for 2K21. It's mad. Donovan Mitchell had 44, 6 and 5. This has quickly become the surprising series of the first round. What were your initial predictions going into it, and how has that changed as this has evolved?
I thought going into it, like everyone was saying, it's going to go 6 or 7. I thought, yeah, probably fair play. And then as soon as Utah went 3-1 up, I thought it's done now. Like Utah will see it out, no problem. And there were also some early calls for I don't know if you can remember what the comparisons people were making, but they were saying this Mitchell Murray rivalry is bigger than Larry Bird and all these other players and stuff.
Someone said ridiculous. Bigger.
Oh yeah, honest, it was nuts. And I thought there's no chance that's happening. But just in terms of two players going at it, neither of them can miss. It's just unbelievable basketball at the minute. They both got the most points in the playoffs of any players at the minute. Mitchell with 232 and Murray with 204. And they both made the most threes of anybody in the playoffs. And last night, just watching Jamal Murray, especially in the fourth, he literally didn't miss a three. On fire, bombing them. It's going to be in the 90s on 2K at this rate if he carries on. But yeah, it was just a joy to watch. And there's a few other takeaways, but what were your initial reactions to that last night?
I went back and rewatched it because as recently as a couple of weeks ago, I was on the High Tea Hoops podcast, and I was saying how frustrating I find Murray because he struggles with consistency, and here the guy is averaging 34 points over 6 games in a playoff series. But I went back and watched all his makes again, and literally I think I remember him shooting one mid-range jump shot and then one sort of mid-range floater, and the rest were either layups where he was getting to the rim really easily, or they were just these incredible step-back threes. And it was just I sat there watching it again, and I'm gonna ask a controversial question. Are we sure this is Jokic's team?
Nope. No, that's the fascinating that's the fascinating thing that they've done. I think looking at the two rosters, Utah's really limited with the adjustments that it can make just with the personnel that they've got. Whereas you look at Denver and the players that they've got, I think giving the ball to Murray more and letting him kind of take things and take the steering wheel is what's led to them dominating a bit more recently. And then Jokic has just been able to facilitate and do what he does with those passes that he does with one hand, flinging it across the court and all those things. But they've just got so many more players. And last night, the biggest thing for me was Michael Porter only scored 2 points, and it was this dunk from nowhere. He couldn't hit a three, but he had the highest plus minus of anybody. And usually, the thing with him was that he can't defend, but his offensive game is so good that you've got to leave him out there. And he was starting the games, so that the fact that his defense had improved so clearly last night, and all the Denver announcers were proper wetting themselves over it. Every time he read a play or went the right way, they were like, "See, the kid's learning. He knows what he's doing." And I think that's made a huge difference for them, which showed in the fact that they left him out even though he didn't score all night.
Yeah, I think this Denver team is going to be scary. I don't think all the pieces are clicking yet. And I sort of say, is this Jokic's team tongue in cheek? Because this is obviously Murray's series. But Jokic is still averaging 24, 7 and 6 or something stupid like that. Which is not bad. It's not bad when you're going up against a defensive player of the year who is literally on the floor because he can stop you. And so I just wonder what it's going to be like against a different lineup with a weaker interior, how he is going to perform and whether he will take some of the load back from Murray. But it's been fantastic. And the weapons that this Denver team have, the young weapons, paints a pretty picture for things to come in the next few years. you mentioned the rivalry. It's mad. One's averaging 34, one's averaging
Yeah.
38.7, and then they see each other around the campus straight afterwards. I
Yeah.
love this environment. It's just mad. It's excellent. What more could you ask of going, toe to toe with someone? The season's on the line. You drop 50 to keep your team playing, and then you just go and bump into that team and smile at them when chilling out by the pool or whatever afterwards. It's an incredible, unique experience. Um, Game 7 is on Tuesday, so what's that, tomorrow now? At 1:30 a.m. British summer time, so that's Wednesday morning. All you Yanks, you know what time it is anyway. We don't have to remind you of the early nights that we have, or late nights that we have. Who have you got winning? This is a loaded question.
It's so difficult. It's not Denver or Utah. It's Donovan or Jamal, basically. I think I'm going to go with Denver just because of what we said about the adjustments. I don't think Michael Porter can shoot as poorly as he did last time. I just think they've got more options to their offense, and Utah's defense can't cope with them they can't cope with anybody. No one could if he was shooting like he was, Jamal Murray. But I think I'm going to take Denver. I don't think, even if they go through, I don't think they'd get past the Clippers in the next round. But what do you reckon is going to happen?
You know what? I went Denver to win the series, so I'm going to stick with Denver. But wow, Utah have made this much more of a series than I ever anticipated. And when they get Bogdanovic back next year, that's going to be scary. It seems like Mike Conley's found his role since being back in the bubble. He's 21, 5, and 6. It's just wow. This is what a time. This is like the future is bright. These are two young stars that are leading their respective franchises. It is incredible to see. I don't even know how to put it any better than that. Mitchell versus Murray. I'm not seeing it as whoever said Magic versus Bird was never watched Magic versus Bird or anything like that. Just the scale of it. I sincerely hope this isn't, for Murray at least, a flash in the pan, one series and done kind of peak. We don't want it to be. I saw something the other day saying second greatest Canadian player ever, and at first I was like, hold on, that's a bit quick. But then I went back through the Canadian players there have been outside of Steve Nash, and it's actually not that much of a stretch. Let's switch then to
before we move on. Shout out to Gary Harris. There was a lot of build up about him coming back, and then had more fouls than points. But it's nice to see him back on the court.
It's good to see him back. He's another. There's talk at different points in the season as to which one of those two is better. So
yeah, that's fair. So look how far they've come.
Look, exactly. So my point is, Gary Harris, when he's back on form, when you've got Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, and Gary Harris, that is a stacked four.
And Bol, don't forget.
And Bol.
I
was explaining to someone earlier, like a guy who's from Toronto but doesn't watch a lot of hoops. So he's like one of these Raptors fans by default. I was talking to him about the Nuggets and explaining. So he mentioned Manute Bol, and I was explaining his son was in the league, and that the first game they played in the bubble, the shortest guy they started was 6'11", and their point guard was 7 foot. And he was just sort of sat there raising his eyebrows. This Denver team is exciting and stacked. I can't wait for next year. Let's move on to a series that ended yesterday. Clippers dispatched the Mavericks in 6 games. Not a surprising series outcome, but wow, what a series from Luka Doncic. 31 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 8.7 assists. Basically the youngest guy, in fact the only guy to average 38 and 8 in their first playoff series. He hit a game winner. He did it on a bad ankle. He had a 40-point triple-double. He even had Kawhi complimenting him, which doesn't happen very often at all. Obviously they lost, but what a series from Luka. These Mavs have got a bright future as well. This West is stacked. I can't get over it. Get rid of the conferences already.
The place to be.
Yeah, but what's your thoughts on this Mavericks future and this series outcome?
I could talk for hours about Luka, and I know you guys talked about him quite a lot on last week's episode. But he is just amazing. And the most remarkable thing for me is that I know both of us love the Clippers roster and think that they're probably the favourites to take the whole thing just because they're so loaded, especially defensively. And you look at Dallas's roster and they've just got hardly anyone past Luka, especially with Porzingis injured. Like, it's when Trey Burke's playing 36 minutes for you last night, like it's really pushing it, considering he wasn't even on a team like a few months ago. So I think if they're only going to get better, like you say, and it's an exciting team to support. One of my best friends is a massive Dallas fan, and he's like, can't believe what he's watching, and like the future's so bright, and is just getting really excited. So the question is, I think, what happens to Porzingis? Because his injury is such a big question mark, and being that tall, there's always going to be problems with knees and all the stuff that has been going on with him. So if he can stay healthy for a good run of games in the playoffs in the future, or if they could trade him and get something of similar value back, then the only way is up for Dallas, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think Porzingis is an interesting one. Obviously, he's got the partial meniscus tear in his left knee. Fortunately, it's not the right knee that blew up the ACL and put him out for about 18 months. But this is the question mark that's been around him since he came into the league, really. He as the season goes on, he wears down and ultimately gets injured. And when he's on the court, when he is healthy, what a number 2 option to have. I've watching these guys through the bubble, seeing how high, Porzingis skies to the rim, all 7 feet of him, just his ability to stretch the floor. There's a reason he was the first guy who was like in public known as the unicorn. It's just, it's fantastic, but it's no good if you can't do it for the full season, and especially when it comes down to it in the playoffs. And that's, I'm not saying if Porzingis was on the floor, they would have beaten the Clippers, but certainly it would have been even closer than it already was. And this was a close series. I'm not convinced he's going to be able to stay healthy. He strikes me as one of these guys that, for some reason, that flame's going to be snubbed out by injuries, and through nothing of his own fault other than his own genetic makeup, unfortunately. And it's just not I don't know. There's just something about him that doesn't strike me as being able to stay healthy. Maybe it is because he's a tall, gangly guy, and that's it. And you just think they break is the minute. No wonder he doesn't want to get in the post.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the flagrant foul. Flagrant 2 on Luka. I hate the fact he's called Morris Senior. It really bugs me. It's just no.
You've always got to refer to him in his full title.
Yeah, the kid is junior. You're just Morris. But yeah, was it deserved? Do you think it was a reputation thing, or do you think it was a star thing leaning towards Luka?
I do think it was deserved, and I quite like Marcus Morris. He was one of the only consistent players on the Celtics seasons ago. But I think we had that thing where, was it the game before, 2 games before, when he pretended, almost tripped up on his ankle, and then said that he didn't mean it. And
yeah, game before, I think, yeah.
And he came out and said, I would never do that. Like, I would never try and injure somebody else or hurt anyone on the court. And then you get this game where he's like smacking him across the face. So, I mean, he has got a reputation for doing those things. I think he just sees red in certain situations, but I think it was the right call at the end of the day.
Yeah, it felt to me like the Clips were employing some kind of scheme that would have been more, been better placed when Doc was actually playing on the court. This is sort of the enforcer, the physical side of things. I get that Patrick Beverley sets the tone, and sets the tone for that team, and he's obviously not playing at the minute. I kind of felt like they needed someone to try and set this is how we play, you don't mess with us tone. But whereas Beverley does it by being a pest and just frustrating you and getting the edge that way and then pumping the team up, Morris tried to do it with the let's just, no easy layups, essentially, like the early 90s Knicks, Pat Riley coach team. And that doesn't fly in today's game, and it just didn't. It's just, why, man? Why swing this? Like, he fouled him, he's trying to stop the shot getting up, but just clout the guy in the face. Flagrant 2, deserved, get out. It shocks me that he thought he'd get away with it. Like, even though the ref said this wasn't reputational, if you've got a reputation for doing it, you ought to be a bit more careful with what you do. Yeah. Ridiculous.
You see stuff like that in football all the time, where they'll just throw someone and say, just go and annoy that guy right there and try and get him yellow card, red card, that kind of thing. And it's probably the same, like you say, with with Luka. It's like getting his grill, getting frustrated, getting annoyed. But then when you end up being the one that gets annoyed and you flip out like that, it doesn't really work. So
yeah, no, I agree. Are you worried at all about the Clips? We just mentioned that in the preseason, you and I both picked them to win it all.
Yeah.
Has this against Luka and some players?
And the
no disrespect to the rest of the Mavericks, because I actually do like the rest of the Mavericks. Seth Curry's fantastic. Dorian Finney-Smith is a great two-way player. Do you worry at all that the Clips had more of a bump in the road than they were expecting here?
It's similar because we both had the Clippers and Philly to come out of the East.
Don't mention that
bit. We kept saying all year about Philly. They've just got to click. It's just got to happen. And I still feel a bit like that about the Clippers. Like they've still not got into top gear. They've still not got going yet. And Paul George has kind of been the epitome of that in the way that he's been really inconsistent. He's not looked totally dialed in. He's been scoring like 5 points one night, and then he did have about 32, 34 point game the other night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think whether it's because they've not needed to be at the level we want them to be at, I don't know. But I think if they hit their total potential, then there's definitely no stopping them. But it's if they get there, because if they're playing on an off night and they have more of them than good ones, like they're looking like at the moment, then who knows? But I think it almost showed as well in the way that they were guarding Doncic, because they were putting Marcus Morris on him quite a lot. But then whenever it got to crunch time and they needed to stop him, it was like Kawhi was going, get out of the way. I'm locking this guy down, to the extent that you can lock Luka down. And so I think, if it was Game 7 in the NBA Finals, you'd be getting that all game and you'd be seeing the absolute top level that you need to from the Clippers.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think Pat Bev is a key for them to come back. He says some stupid things to Michelle Roberts, but on the court, he is actually a valuable part of that team. I still think they've got another gear they can shift into, and I'm hoping they do it sooner rather than later. This is a team that is loaded for the short term and needs to do something quick. And if all goes to plan, that will be an incredible Western Conference Finals. But a team that's trying to stop them, will be trying to stop one of the LA teams from getting there. That's a terrible transition. Rockets versus Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, 2 a.m. our time. Mm-hmm. OKC played terribly in the last game. They were blown out by 34. Do they stand a chance of making this series go 7?
If you'd have asked me that like a game ago, I would have said yes, but they were so bad in the last game that it's hard to see. Although, to be fair, it was just obvious things that they seemed to be doing wrong, like letting Lou Dort shoot a million shots. Like, this guy's known for his defense, not for the way that he shoots, and they're just saying, have free reign, go and shoot like your Steph. And that didn't work out for him. To someone who's probably as naive and doesn't know that much about coaching as me, it seems like a really easy, try and play inside and use Steven Adams as this huge guy, and Gallinari played terribly as well, and just get inside and kill the Rockets for their lack of height. But they're just not doing it. They're trying to play so much on the perimeter against these guys who are all renowned perimeter defenders, against the best defense in the league at the minute. And then you suffer the consequences like you do the other night. So it's going to take them with a completely different game plan, I think, to get anything from the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think that's what this small ball lineup is designed to do. It's the tactical come inside, and I think it's reverse psychology. I think they're saying, come inside. You think you're going to get easy buckets on us, and actually, PJ Tucker is a fantastic post defender. Robert Covington is an incredible help defender who was averaging over 2 blocks a game during that brief stint when he first was traded over there. And I think that's what they're trying to do, because you suddenly think that that's the easier shot in terms of field goal percentage, when it's not as easy as you think it's going to be, and they're going to kill you on the other end in the points per shot attempt from outside. The only way you can keep up with this team is by shooting threes. It's mad. And I know that there was a bit of a skirmish. It was just seeing it on the bottom there, where Schroeder went for essentially he sack tapped PJ Tucker, didn't he? And Tucker sort of nudged him with his head afterwards. Good to see that they're not being suspended a game. they're just being fined. That's fine. I can live with that. I would hate to see the outcome of a game determined by a player being suspended or not. The rest of the Thunder just need to do. Gallinari, where was he? He's been incredible, like in a number of games this bubble. He just disappeared into a shell. SGA, again, he's like he did in game one. He's not been there. And this is a team that has got they're getting Westbrook back into his paces. He didn't, he played 24 minutes. He didn't score a lot. He didn't do a lot. But he's going to do more. If you can't keep up with the Rockets with shell of Westbrook, how are you going to keep up with them when he's moving at speed? They've got this is their backs are on the wall this game. So I'm expecting something big from CP3. The experiment in Houston is working so far.
Yeah, I think so. And I didn't expect. I mean, it was perfect for Houston to allow Westbrook to come back in because he just had free reign to ease himself back into the game. And he did look rusty, but he was allowed to look rusty because there were so many points in the lead. I just think, to be fair, I've been surprised that OKC have taken 2 games so far. I probably wouldn't have said that before the matchup started, but I just think it's going to take a bad game from Harden and some big shots from CP3 and Gallinari and all those to actually drop for them to stand any chance, I think.
No, I think that's a fair point. Let's jump into some round 2 predictions quickly. Your Boston Celtics versus the Toronto Raptors. They're 1-0 up after an absolute, they just smashed them. There's not much more you can say than that. Are you more or less confident after one game?
I think it'll still go 6 or 7. So I'm glad that we've got one up already. I just think all the takeaways that I'm seeing on the internet is, Toronto won't play that badly again. Like, they shot terribly, which, to be fair, they did shoot a lot worse than normal. But I also don't think Boston were as good as they can be. I still think they've got another gear to go into. So I do think they'll both get a lot of games here and there. But I just think we're quite a good matchup for Toronto in the way that our size matches up, and we've just got a good all-round defense, which, when they've got a lot of players that can score and an offense that moves the ball a lot, it's good to have all those players that can switch and can stop all of them. So having watched game one and having watched the way we played in the regular season, I would still take Boston, I think, reluctantly. But I've definitely been encouraged by game one. I think it'd be a tight series going forward, though. Yeah,
fingers crossed it is. It'd be a bit of a shock if it wouldn't. Certainly, if it did go very one-sided, it would have me rethinking who I now have coming out the East. I think Toronto, for me, they're suffering from, they're great when things are going their way. They are absolutely great when things are going their way, but they are doing it as a collective. And I think at some point, games are tight enough where you need someone to say, enough with the system, I'm taking this now. It's what we saw Kawhi do last year, and it's what we've seen him do again this year. It's what the superstars do. They take over when the game matters. When they sense that something needs doing, they don't get the feeling that there is anyone on the Raptors doing that. Certainly, there are guys who will do it for a game or so, and they will share it around. But in terms of
who would you want doing that? If you were the Raptors, if you were Nick Nurse, who would you want to do that?
Well, for me, the logic would be Kyle Lowry, but he's never been able to do it before, just because he's able to play outside in. Where Siakam would be probably the popular choice because he's the star on the team, but I still don't think he is consistently at that level. Even someone like Van Vliet, who is just playing his way into a very, 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 very healthy contract at the end of this year.
Yeah.
They have so many options. That's the thing, but none of them are at the level they need to be to just sort of say, "This is my team. I've got this," and that's what worries me. I still think they're a fantastic team, and this will be a long series. I still think they could win this series. In fact, before game one, I picked them to come out in 6 or 7. But I do worry that when it comes to nut crunching time, they haven't got anyone who's going to step up and go, "This is mine. I've got this."
Yeah, and they kept. I think it looked a bit like Siakam was trying to get the ball. What am I saying? Trying to get the game by the scruff of the neck and kind of take over. But he was doing it in the post, and he had the beast that is Semi Ojeleye standing between him the hoop, and he just could not get past him. I've never been more proud of him in my life. So if it's going to carry on like that and Semi's actually looking like he's of value on the court, then he's going to be in for a struggle, I think, Pascal.
Josh Coyne and I, when we were in LA last year, we saw Semi working out with, I forgot his name now, with Drew, yeah. Sorry, Drew, I forgot your name completely. Oops. And we walked in and we were like, oh, he looks like he's lost weight. He looks slimmer. And Drew looked at us and was just like, he's got a T-shirt on. If he takes his T-shirt off, other NBA players will be embarrassed and put their T-shirts on. And I was just like, okay, fair enough.
He's a brick wall. He is absolutely massive.
Absolute unit. He just didn't, like, in the flesh, maybe it's the camera adding 10 pounds, who knows, but in the flesh it just didn't look as big as that. Okay, Milwaukee versus Miami. Hearing a lot of talk that Miami are going to take this, and that makes me nervous. Do you think they're a legitimate threat to ripping what everyone is handing to Milwaukee as the Eastern Conference title? Do you think they're capable of stopping them before they even get to the conference finals?
I actually don't know. It's a really intriguing series because you look at the odds for this, and Milwaukee are still the favourites by quite a lot. And so I actually think it's fairly even. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying one way or the other these are going to take it. But I just think that obviously Milwaukee have got the best player in the series, but Miami have got the best team. I think if you look at the rest of the rosters and put them side by side, Miami's got such a good roster with so much fight in it. You look at players like Jay Crowder and Jimmy Butler and Dragic and all these players that are willing to kind of get down in the dirt and fight for the games. Like you were saying, if it's not going right, get the game by the scruff of the neck and say, like, I'm taking over now. And I just think you would much rather have Dragic doing that than Eric Bledsoe. So I think it could be really tight. I actually probably would favour Miami if anybody, but I don't know what you think about which way it'll go.
I picked obviously I picked the Bucks to come out of this series. It is closer than you'd think, he says, and now it'll be a 4-0 sweep or something stupid. I don't know how they're going to stop Giannis. Like we saw in the bubble, they were up by 25 at halftime. The Heat were up by against the Bucks, and then the Bucks stormed back and took it. And I wonder how they're going to, because that's the key to it. Like someone like Kawhi, we're talking about Kawhi a lot tonight, but someone like Kawhi has had success against Giannis before. He had success last season. Someone like Bam, I'm not sure he will have the same level of success, and it's going to take someone like Jimmy Butler to do that. Like Jimmy is one of these guys who defines a team's culture, and he doesn't necessarily do it through scoring. If he can slow Giannis down, then that's great. But I want to see all these ridiculously good shooting rookies and young stars they've got on this team. Are they going to be able to do it against this Bucks team when the pressure's up? Because we know the Bucks are not very good at defending the three, so they're going to get these shots. But is that going to A, psych them out, or B, with the pressure ramped up another level, is that going to affect them? Because they've never been here before. We did have a question a couple of weeks ago from Miami Heat UK, which has taken us till now to get to it, because you've all been fantastic at sending questions in. What percentage chance do you give the Heat of getting to the Eastern Conference Final? Should we get past the Pacers? This tells you how dated it is. As we're fancied to do, we would play the Bucks in the semis, who we're 2-1 against this season. Could we make a shock appearance? What percentage chance then would you give the Heat of taking this series?
I actually think between all the teams in round two, I think that each team has a quarter of a chance to get there. I think between Milwaukee, Miami, Boston, and Toronto to take the East, it's just so wide open, and there's some really intriguing matchups between them. So
you're giving all four teams a 25% chance of winning. This is like the ultimate hedge. It's like you're not just sitting on the fence. There's two rows of houses back to, it's literally you're sitting on the corner of someone's garden of back-to-back fences.
Fine.
No good.
I'm gonna say the Bucks get knocked out in 5, and the Celtics do Toronto in 6, and then the Celtics do Miami in 5 in the Eastern Finals.
Well, you've gone from sitting on the fence to just like.
It's just because you pushed me.
Wow. Okay, that was. I'm going to use that button more often then, because that worked a treat. I still think the Bucks are coming out of this. If they don't, then that's scary. One of the things that the Bucks have done this year is basically everything they did last year, but better, except defending the three and Brook Lopez's shooting, essentially. And that wasn't what they fell apart on last year. It was their weaknesses they fell apart on last year. So if the Heat can capitalize on those weaknesses, such as Giannis still being unreliable from outside, then they sure as hell stand a chance. But if they took it, I think it'd be in 6. But I think the Bucks are going to take this. I think the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you get past Giannis and the way that Chris Middleton's playing, which is, I mean, he's got a little bit better, but he was atrocious a few games ago. I just think, like, who's the 3rd and 4th best player on that team? And when you get into players like Brook Lopez and I'm going to say George Hill, if I'm not saying Eric Bledsoe, I can't bring myself to do that. But it's not great. And so I wonder, it's like you say, it'd be dead interesting if they don't make it out of this round 2, where they look to improve. If it comes down to Bud again, and he's a great coach and he won Coach of the Year and all that, but you can't do it in the playoffs, which is the same old thing that we say all the time about him.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they choose to make a coaching change or whether they go for that 2nd, 3rd star, it'd just be a really interesting summer, I think, regardless, because they definitely need to strengthen the team around Giannis if they want to keep him long term.
Which is crazy to say about the team with the best record in the league, essentially.
True.
Okay, let's move on. Talking on D, our discourse on Discord. Usually we talk about one of the conversations we've had around hoops on our Discord server, discord.me/doubleclutch. Come join us. We're quickly approaching the 100-member mark. Come join us. Come talk hoops. So we'd usually go into something that happened, a conversation that took place on there, but we're going to do something slightly different today. So the community is still in its relative infancy, but something awesome happened this week in our Kicks and Clothes channel, where we basically talk about different things that are dropping and what sort of things people have got. Ross McLeod, who used to do a lot of stuff for us and is still a friend of the pod, as we call it. He's a friend in life, actually. I chat to him quite frequently. He's a top bloke. But he said he was looking for a certain Phoenix Suns jersey. He'd been looking over a year, had no luck in finding it. And it turns out that another member, Post-Up323, had the exact jersey, and for a fellow Suns fan was willing to give it away. And he literally sent it that day, and it arrived at Ross's the next day. So that was awesome. That was an incredible gesture.
What a guy.
That's amazing. So Ross then sent him a package back, which he hasn't actually told us what was in the package, which made me raise an eyebrow. I don't know what he sent him. I'm assuming it's like a body part or some kind of love letter. I don't know. Which would, fair enough. That is the price you pay for a rare Devin Booker jersey. But then paying it forward, he offered one of his Lost Suns jerseys to anyone who wanted it. And originally Hugh was going to take it, but then there's another Suns fan. I don't know where all these Suns fans are coming from. They're all out of the woodwork now that they've had this bubble success, because there's not even all the Suns fans we've got there. Anyway, another Suns fan, Flying Tortoise, was a bit late getting to it. And Hugh just went, you know what? It deserves to be with a Suns fan. Send it to him instead. So this interaction, like this community, 4 people who really wouldn't have known each other necessarily, have now basically brought some happiness to each other's lives, and I think that's just a fantastic testament to what the Discord server is all about. So if you want to join us, it's discord.me/doubleclutch. Come talk hoops with us. We're running close to time now. We've got 12 minutes left, and we have got a bunch to get through, and our picks of games for the week. So who was the best player never to make the playoffs? Shout to Devin Booker from UK Nets fans. So who have you got?
I took this as like current, only because when I was looking down the list of all-time players, I was like, I do not know who you are. Devin Booker's obviously up there, and then it gets to like Ja Morant, depending on how good you think he is, like right now.
After one season. Wow.
I know, but then the other names I was looking at were like Zach LaVine and Brandon Ingram, and I would definitely take Ja Morant over them. So Trae Young's in that conversation as well, but I just don't like his defense. So that's probably where I'd go with that one.
Yeah, I think in terms of current players, you're probably about right there. But in terms of players all time, the thing is, Ja Morant's going to make the playoffs soon.
Yeah,
where he was like a
he
game
nearly did
away
this
from
year.
it.
So.
Exactly. Booker, if they carry on the trajectory they've been on their past 8 games, then they're definitely making the playoffs next year. So I went further back. So I looked at the guys like Clark Kellogg, who is now a play-by-play commentator for the Cavs and had a short 4-year career where he was like a standout in college and then came to the league, and after 4 years his knees were shot. Jeff Petrie, who played for the Portland Trailblazers back when they were basically in a brand new franchise. He was a 2-time All-Star. He was Rookie of the Year, averaged 22 and 5, but his injuries ended his career after 6th season. So I'm going with another guy who played for the Suns. I'm going for Tom Van Arsdale. I don't even know if I said the surname right. It was Arsdale.
Big fan, are you? Big fan of his.
Well, he's a bit before my time, despite what my hairline might suggest. But this guy played 12 seasons in the league, so that's a solid career. And he was a 3-time All-Star. So if you're making the All-Star team 3 times and you're playing for that long, you're pretty decent. And yet you never ever make the playoffs. Never make the playoffs.
Before all the player empowerment stuff, so he couldn't force a trade out of wherever he was.
Well, the thing is, I think he played for like 6 teams as well. So like he had different shots. Other than that, like a guy who eventually made it, someone like Clarence Weatherspoon, who played in the league a long time before he actually made the playoffs, and was someone who was supposed to be like a franchise changer. So yeah, we finally got to that question, but I'm going with Tom Van Arsdale.
The sad thing was, when I was looking at that, my first instinct was Karl Anthony Towns, and then I actually remembered that he was in the playoffs. It was just such a disappointing effort when they got there. briefly in the
playoffs once.
Blew my mind. But...
Question from Flying Tortoise. Although the pandemic has caused some less than ideal situations for basketball, what positives have you got from this? E.g. playing games, neutral arena. For me, it's a silly thing, but seeing the games at a reasonable hour has been good. I totally agree with reasonable hour. That's been fantastic.
Yeah, massively.
It's been a good little pre-season for getting us ready for this now playoff section where we're going to have to start drinking coffee and caffeine past 4 p.m. and just to keep us up all night. What else have you enjoyed about the restart and how it's worked out?
I do like the playing games. I feel like that's something I'll definitely revisit, whether it be next year or however many years down the line. I just think that provides so much intrigue. We had it a few years ago when it was it Minnesota, Denver, and it came down to the last game of the season, so it was essentially a play-in. And there's loads more interest around that than there would have been for a normal end of season.
Yeah, that was the one time Karl Anthony Towns made the playoffs. So you've got him into 2 questions on the bounce. I think it does certainly help, the fact that there is that element of competition there. I've liked things like the rail cam. I have not missed.
That's amazing.
As much as I'm a Red Panda stan, I've not missed the halftime shows not being there. Like I there's only so much chihuahua and gymnast thing I can take. Even the cheerleaders and the mascots. And don't get me wrong, like people like Banjo the mascot are great. Rocky from Denver is great. Benny the Bull is obviously the GOAT, which is a strange sentence to say, but it's all stripped away from all the pantomime. We're just getting really good basketball, and I kind of almost feel like were we getting this basketball all along, and all this pantomime around it was distracting us. So I'm enjoying this stripped back product. Rail cam is obviously incredible, and I hope they can find some way of keeping that when things move back to normal with fans in the arena. Hugh, who is watching the stream now and just said thank you for saying something positive about him because it's so rare. Which team outside the top 4, Clips, Lakers, Bucks and Raptors, he means, has a legitimate shot at reaching the finals?
Not the Spurs. For me, it's between, after what we just said about the East, the Celtics and Miami.
Okay.
And then probably Houston in the West, depending on.
Oh my God. So okay. No, fair enough. Boston have a chance. I think Boston's biggest chance out of those 3, because I think Miami, again, I'm picking the Bucks to come out of that series, and then the Rockets. I think that by the time they meet an LA team, they're gonna. This is where we see the next level of elite sort of kick in. We're going to see the a team like the Clippers, who essentially can go small ball the same way that the Rockets have, and then we're going to see, or if they end up facing the Lakers at some point, we're going to see someone like AD, who is agile enough and versatile enough to play from the outside or kill you in the post. And I just think they could run roughshod over him. Cool. Ginger Shack, outside of current scenario, okay, but which team has the best complete spread of jerseys and which has the worst? So he's talking about the current jerseys available for each team. Who has the best?
Now, the key word in this question is complete set, because there's so many individual amazing kits out there, like the Memphis throwback one and the Raptors throwback one. I flipping love the Miami ones, the Miami Vice, bright coloured stuff. But I don't particularly like all the rest of their kits. So I actually think, having just looked at them, Minnesota's might be my favourite.
You're going to get Karl Anthony Towns into 3 of these. There isn't a side bet going on here. We've not like how much can you talk about the Timberwolves?
No, it's just the way he wears the shirts. It's the way they fit.
For me, it's you mentioned the Grizzlies. It's the Grizzlies jerseys at the minute. I've got one sat just over my shoulder there. They're just sick. They're so simple. They're so different as well. I like the fact that the names are underneath, and then the throwback ones and the powder blue ones. It's just an awesome collection. Okay, so who have you got as your worst set of jerseys?
Oh. So again, my least favourite actual kit is the Celtics third one, where it looks like they've got the writing from an Irish pub stuck across. I just hate it. It's vile.
It's horrific.
But then the rest of the Celtics kits are fairly good. So I think I'm going to go with either the Pistons, who wears a grey kit. It's just horrible.
That's
or
true.
Actually the Warriors I've never been a massive fan of.
Oh, really?
Just with the huge circular badge in the middle. But
you don't like... That's the Golden Gate Bridge. How can you not like the Golden Gate Bridge?
I know it's an iconic thing, but I just... When you put it next to all the other kits and you look at it without considering what the team's actually like, for me, it's probably one of my least favourite collective kits.
I dislike the Boston set. I don't like as you mentioned. I don't like the pub scroll for that uni. I don't like the black jersey. I don't know why. I just don't like it. And then I get like you don't mess with something when it's right, but I don't know. I just don't think I could ever wear. I don't think I could wear a green jersey, and for most of the teams I've played off, they've worn green, but I just don't that Boston green. Yeah, well, yeah, but I just don't like the Boston kits. I don't know what it is about them.
I just want to confirm something, because for all this Boston slander that you give me, when I understand you put your house for sale recently.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that right? And so I thought, you know what, as you would, I'm gonna have a little nose.
You had a sneaky peek.
And sitting there above your screen, you can't see on your webcam, is a Boston banner.
Oh, there's a Boston one here. I don't know if you can see it on the shot. There's a Chicago one there. There's a Trailblazers vanity plate there. There's a Bucks vanity plate there. So it's not like I'm not. It's not a secret Boston crush. I just happened to have a friend going to Boston, and I was like, pick me up a pennant whilst you're there, and he brought me one. He also got me oh no, I've just ripped it. I put my hand...
Oh no. Oh, nice.
Yeah, just ripped the corner off it. Sorry, Stephen. Which has your favourite player on the back.
Burn it.
Burn it. Well, I'll just carry on ripping it up. I started, I'll finish. Yeah. Okay. Now we've got to be really quick. I'll get to this one very quickly, but bit long. It's a good one when we need to go really quick. Why does everyone from front offices apparently seem to rate Ty Lue so much? With most coaching vacancies, his name seems to come up, but I've heard he's demanding $7 million. Average coaching salary is $3 million. I get that he won a championship, but most people see that as LeBron, and it's not like Nick Nurse having a huge. This is a long question. Having a huge impact as well as Kawhi. This is from Jonah. Alternatively, if you were any front offices looking for a head coach, would you genuinely take Ty Lue as the first choice? I just struggle to see his appeal to the teams who are linked with him. Ty Lue, head coach.
Long question, short answer, no.
No.
I think he's all right. I mean, even when he coached LeBron, he was criticised for some of his coaching things because it was literally just get the ball to LeBron, and anything beyond that, it seemed a bit of an ask for him. So I wouldn't give him a job if I was.
Give him a job.
GM.
See, I can see the appeal of him. Like I think it was Mark Jackson on the play-by-play applauding his. And I thought, for a second, I thought maybe he was being sarcastic, but basically applauding his X's and O's. And I was like, hold on, it was just a case of LeBron, you run the team. What I can see the appeal of Ty Lue being is that he's a player's player. He's shown that he can control egos in a locker room and and do that to the point where a team can win the finals. Like, he's not an X's and O's guy, but neither was Phil Jackson. That offense was Tex Winter's. It's not like he was just able to manage the egos. And I'm not for a split second comparing Ty Lue to Phil Jackson in terms of coaching quality. Let's just to be abundantly clear. I'm just making an example of a guy who is not an X's and O's guy and yet is a great coach. So he can control egos. He can control a locker room. He's a player. He was a player. I just think that's the appeal of him. In terms of $7 million a year, if someone offered me $7 million a year, I'd say yes. And someone offered me 500 quid a year, I'd probably say yes.
Thing is, why go for him when you can do what the Nets are doing and go in for Greg Popovich? So.
Well, yeah, that's true. Popovich to the Nets 2020. This is that's final question from Brett Lawty on Twitter. Who are you tipping to win the finals? Go on, you've tipped everything else. Who are you getting to win the finals?
I'm going to stick with Clippers, but not as strongly as I thought pre-season.
Not as strongly as I thought pre-season. Excellent. Okay. I'm sticking with the Clippers, but it's going to be a tight one, I think, in that Western Conference. Okay. So thanks to everyone for dropping in tonight. We're going to end it there because we're running a little bit over. Thank you for all the new follows we had. We had MTTHRDY, which I'm assuming is Matt Hardy. We had Mark UK 2008 on Twitch as well. On Discord, we had Sully FPS. And on Discord, we had Selena C. We also, miraculously on Twitch, we also had Coach Hugh tune in, who within about 2 minutes managed to slag you off for slating his Spurs when you said it's not going to be the Spurs. So that was an epic entrance from Coach Hugh. Thank you to everyone for listening. If you're not already, make sure you're following us at Double Clutch UK, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Subscribe to the pod on all pod platforms or watch us live on Twitch. We are here right now, from another 30 seconds or so, twitch.tv/doubleclutch, and come and join the Discord community, discord.me/doubleclutch. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back again next week. See you then.
See you soon.